And you were still watching Starting Point here on TVRI World. We're still talking about the World Ocean Day, something that is very pertinent and significant to the global communities.
Right. Now, before we go deeper into the World Oceans Day's news, let's hear it there's a video message by Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, on World Oceans Day 2023.
It is the foundation of life. It supplies the air we breathe and food we eat. It regulates our climate and weather. The ocean is our planet's greatest reservoir of biodiversity. Its resources sustain communities, prosperity, and human health around the world. Humanity counts on the ocean. But can the ocean count on us? We should be the ocean's best friend. But right now, humanity is its worst enemy. Human-induced climate change is heating our planet, disrupting weather patterns and ocean currents, and altering marine ecosystems and the species living there. Marine biodiversity is under attack from overfishing, overexploitation, and ocean acidification. Over 1/3 of fish stocks are being harvested at unsustainable levels, and we are polluting our coastal waters with chemicals, plastic, and human waste. But this year's World Oceans Day reminds us that the tides are changing. Last year, we adopted an ambitious global target to conserve and manage 30% of land and marine and coastal areas by 2030, as well as a landmark agreement on fisheries subsidies. At the UN Ocean Conference in Lisbon, the world agreed to push for more positive ocean action. A global, legally binding agreement to end plastic pollution is under negotiation. And in March, countries agreed to the historic High Seas Treaty on the conservation and sustainable use of marine biodiversity in areas beyond national jurisdiction. Realizing the great promise of these initiatives requires collective commitment. Sustainable Development Goal 14, to conserve and sustainably use the ocean resources, hangs in the balance. This World Oceans Day, let's keep pushing for action. Today and every day, let's put the ocean first.
Well, inspiring words there from Antonio Guterres. Moving on to the next report. Deep in the waters in the Makassar Strait, Indonesian marine scientist Saifuddin Yusuf points to a worrying sight: dead fish and damaged coral reefs which have been flattened by fish bombing. For nearly 2 decades, Yusuf has been working with former poachers to rehabilitate coral reefs, which have been destroyed by dynamite they used for fishing. The group has restored roughly 30 acres of corals around a group of 120 islands known as the Spermont Archipelago in the Makassar Strait. According to research by Hasanuddin University, 15 years ago, only 2% of the area's original reef area remained undamaged. And that's because for a long time, local fisher folk used explosives and chemicals to stun or kill fish for easy collection. The practice has been banned in Indonesia. According to Greenpeace, Indonesia's roughly 12 million acres of coral reefs account for 1/5 of the world's total. Experts say coral reefs are crucial to coastal and marine ecosystems and play a role in preventing erosion and flooding. But they are increasingly at risk of dying with ocean warming as they absorb greenhouse gas emissions.
Well, today is the World's Ocean Day, so let's get a deeper insight about the ocean, right? And here with us today, we have Professor Rohmid Dahuri, Marine and Fishery Professor at IPB, an advisor to Minister of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, and also Minister of Maritime Affairs and Fisheries from 2001 to 2004. And also we have Mira Teja, volunteer at Fine Reefs Community. Wow. This is a complete dialogue.
We can't wait to pick your brains on the matter. It's such a significant topic today, Professor, and also Ibu Mira. I'd like to start first with Professor. Professor, give us your current take on the ongoing situations of our oceans pertaining the seas and oceans around our country and worldwide.
Well, we have to be, what you call familiar, yeah? They're talking about ocean is not a single dimension ocean is multi-dimension. It consists not only economic aspect, but also ecology, security and defense, and even culture and spirit, right? So if you ask me about what is the current situation about the ocean, if we look at it from economic point of view, frankly speaking, it's in dilemma. What I mean by dilemma is only about 30% of our marine environment, including coastal environment in Indonesia, is already damaged. So 70%, according to statistics, is in good condition. But the condition of coastal communities, especially fishermen, majority of them are still poor. So that's what I mean by in dilemma, because we're already exploiting of the coastal and ocean resources in what we call higher intensity rate. And on the other hand, the condition of fishermen and coastal communities mostly poor. So the question, where is the economic benefit what they will obtain from the utilization of coastal and ocean resources, whereas the condition of our coastal communities and fishermen still poor. So that's what I mean by in what we call a crossroad situation.
Right. Now that's talking about the condition of the ocean in a bigger scale. I want to know, what do you think, Mira, from the activist point of view? How are we doing now? Are we being conscious enough to protect our ocean, or are we actually getting worse in that sense?
I think we can still be optimistic that a lot of people concerned about the ocean, a lot of people aware of what is actually happening. And I also talked to Professor earlier that if you go to the coastal area and talk directly to like the fishermen and the local people, in a sense they know that the old practice that their probably grandparents did was wrong. And they know there is something they need to do. So I believe we are actually on the right track, but we need to enhance the scale. We need to spread more on the awareness, on the education. That is what actually happening right now might be already in a destructive state, and we all need to do our own part for it. So we just need to enhance the scale that we already doing at the moment.
How do you think we can enhance it? Because at the moment, you know, we've been trying to promote, to protect the ocean, like from social media, from advertisement in the television and radio. Do you think we've done enough?
Well, the question, of course, what is enough? Knowing that Indonesia is a coastal area, we have like so many beautiful beaches and all that. But also I will say the challenge is a lot of us who live in the city, we thought that, ocean is so far that we have nothing to do with that. So that's where the education program is important. So what we need to do when we talk about spreading the awareness, of course, we cannot rely only from the government or from the Ministry of Education. But that's when we need to have a lot of people, a lot of community, a lot of organization, and public in general to work together hand in hand, bringing all of this awareness. And that's where we come up with all this education program, with you name it, with the main focus to spread awareness. Because like what we talked earlier, this is the thing that we need to do together.
Right.
We cannot just rely on one organization or the government or whatever. It has to be everyone.
A unity.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Exactly.
Raising awareness is such a crucial thing, and it's one thing to do, especially with the era of social media and digital era right now. But taking real actions is another matter, something that we need to truly see for this time around. I'd like to go over again to Professor. Professor, you mentioned that we are currently in dilemma. Right now, it states that 30% of our oceans already damaged, 70% is still good. But there's a tendency that the number is going to grow with the global warming and inconsidered actions around the globe. So what sort of actions we can truly, realistically do in terms of ways and efforts to prevent further damage to our oceans, be it from the people, the government, from the communities?
Well, as a so-called middle income country, we have to be very optimal in doing what we call, or in dealing with coastal and ocean management, right? So what I mean by optimal, we have to make sure that the economic potential of coastal and ocean resources must be utilized for creating jobs, for providing food, and to increase economic growth, because we need the growth. But at the same time, we have also to restore the damaged environment. So many coastal areas, especially in densely and highly industrialized areas, let's say like Jakarta Bay, almost along the north coast of Java, right? The south coast of Sulawesi, Batam area, mostly damaged. So we have to doing dual track. On the one hand, we have to restore the damaged coastal environment, and on the other hand, we have to increase the utilization of our coastal and ocean resources on sustainable basis. So we have to take care not only economic growth, but also the protection of the environment. In doing so, we have to do three things. Number one is to increase public awareness, because so many government officials and our private sector, as well as our community, do not know the implication of damaging our coastal and ocean environment. So we have to give them through extension programs, through training, and so forth and so forth. Number two, we have to provide alternative livelihood which are more environmentally friendly, because most of our fishermen, our coastal communities, damaging coral reefs by using, let's say, dynamite or poison, because they are forced to do so. They
are actually forced to do it.
Exactly.
They have no other options.
Exactly, because our government, give little care on them. Our government
don't equip them enough with knowledge and equipment and tools to
and
do
alternative livelihood. I remember when, sorry to say, when I was minister in 2002, I was visiting Lampung Bay, and I was, meeting with the fishermen who used the dynamite to catch the fish. And at the time, sadly, their hand was cut because of the lead to throw the bomb. So I was asking them, why don't you stop that practice? And he told me, Minister, if you can provide me with a better livelihood, with more environmental friendly fishing technology, I will stop these practices. And he's right. And then I was providing them with grouper aquaculture and seaweed aquaculture. After 1 year, he stopped doing the dynamite fishing and migrate to the aquaculture.
Right.
So it's as simple as that. Actually, our poor people.
So, Professor, let me get this straight. So we actually have the option.
Sure.
So we actually have the alternate technology to do this better for the ocean. Do we have that at the moment? And why then aren't our fishermen using it then?
Well, because in fishermen side, they don't have option. So it is the duty of our government, the duty of our let's say, private sector to provide our fishermen with, as I said, more environmentally friendly fishing technology or aquaculture, right? So just to give you an example, my experience in Lampung, once we are able to provide them with alternative livelihood, which are more environmentally friendly and more prosperous, and then the fishermen will stop. Exactly.
Okay.
And the third program we have to do is to implement law enforcement.
Right.
Because a person doing damaging activities for the environment, not only lack of awareness, lack of alternative livelihood, but also greed.
Right.
So if we notice that a person who do damage on our environment because of greed, it is the government to enforce the law, to punish them, so that there will be like what is jera, Like,
So they'll have, you know, the chilling effect
Exactly.
of not
So-
doing the same thing
Exactly.
in the future. So in a way, if I may sum up, Professor, is that for the sake of protecting the ocean, we should not sacrifice the prosperity and the welfares of those living around and making their livelihood,
the prosperity
earning their lives from the
and
ocean.
the protection of one must be go hand in hand. Yeah.
It should be synchronized, should be in line.
So I remember the
with the-
saying of IUCN. So
Uh-huh.
according to them, people with empty belly are impossible to think of conservation,
That's right.
let alone
That is a really
doing
good point.
conservation.
Yes.
So it's
When they go hungry, they go angry. right?
Exactly.
I'd like to go over again to Ibu Mira. You are a marine expert. We mentioned that earlier, and we spoke during the commercial break that Louisa mentioned that Indonesia has one of the most beautiful
Definitely.
coral reefs in the world. You've been to
I've
Raja
been to,
Ampat,
I've dived
right?
in Sabang, I've been
Oh
to
my
Raja
gosh.
Ampat.
From the west to
Manado.
the east.
It's amazing.
No short of experience there, but.
Yeah.
But again, on the momentum of World Oceans Day 2023, the UN has released a statement that over 50% of our coral reefs have been damaged. And that would also be include Indonesia in the future if we don't do anything. Please illuminate us, Ibu Mira, on what are some of the biggest dangers and threats out there to our coral reefs and ways to anticipate them.
Well, I know when it comes to the threat, I'm sure Prof can elaborate better. But we do know that the destruction also come like from pollution, from the illegal fishing practice and all that. Like you go everywhere in Indonesia, there's always a very beautiful spots to do diving, but next to those beautiful spots, there's also like the area where you can only find sand. Like all the corals
No coral
has
reefs
no
whatsoever.
coral reef
Where there
whatsoever.
should be coral reefs in
exactly.
those
I'm
spots.
sure, and there were the coral reefs there before.
Oh, okay.
And if you talked during one of our activities where we deployed the artificial reef and we involved the local community, like some of them will say like, oh, this is the place where I used to catch fish, doing the practices that Professor mentioned earlier, which is actually lead to the damage later on. But at the time, their grandparents didn't know that.
Their action damaged the coral
Exactly.
reefs.
It's a generation thing, okay?
Yeah,
Exactly.
That happened for many, many,
Yes,
many
yes.
years.
Yes, and so that's the fact that whenever you go to somewhere which is very beautiful, there's always an area where the coral is totally damaged. So that's what happened right now, and that's when again where we need to step in. And like when the question is how, of course you don't need to go directly to the beach, transplant the coral. You can do also like simple stuff in your daily life that can actually have a big impact on the corals, like save energy. You switch on the light when you leave the room, or a simple act as simple like unplug your handphone charger when you're no longer in use.
Oh, hold on. How is saving, technological use connected to saving coral reefs? Please illuminate us, enlighten us.
Yes, the simple way to say it, because I used to talk to primary students, when you save the energy, it relates also to the source to create those energy, which will lead to global warming. And as we know, when the temperature rise, and it's also rising the temperatures of the seawater, this is a very simple way. It will lead to coral bleaching, for example.
I see.
And coral bleaching leads to coral death. So that's like the, how do you say, the chain reaction from a simple act of saving energy.
Don't overcharge your phone.
Oh man, I used to do it overnight though. Well, does carbonizations and greenhouse emissions also include in those things that danger our coral reefs?
Yes, it is.
The gas emissions from our cars, from motorcycles,
exactly. Yes,
from
it is.
factories?
Yeah, so all of our act, like if you can walk, just go walk, or bicycling, or take the public transportation. It's all lead to save the ocean, actually.
If I may add, the impact of carbonization or global warming on our ocean environment is not only coral bleaching, but also so-called ocean acidification. Because once the carbonization happening, meaning the content of CO2 in the water column increasing, So that decreasing the pH or increasing the acidity of the ocean. So if the ocean water quality become acidic, and then it will, dilute the what you call calcium of the coral formation. So that also will decay or damage the coral environment.
But Mira, what then can we do to actively maintain what we have now?
Like I said, save water, save the energy, and I always start with the very simple stuff because that's the easiest thing to do. Reduce plastic, reuse the plastic, because everything that you use here might end up in the ocean. And that will harm not just the corals but also the other marine creatures, and also stuff like
plastic.
Exactly.
Plastic.
Bring everything that is reusable, and slow fashion.
And
Slow fashion.
What is a slow fashion?
So slow fashion means you utilize your clothes as long as you can.
Oh, I thought you put on your clothes very slowly and you observe every single thing you put on your body, but that's not it.
Mindfulness.
Basically, it's about
Slow
reduce,
fashion.
reuse.
Exactly.
Reduce, and what's the other one?
Recycle.
Recycle. But because we know recycle is a very difficult technical thing, so let's start with the reduce and reuse. And not
That's
just
really tough for
plastic.
women, eh?
Yes.
Well, just self-reminder, don't buy clothes every time you go to mall.
Yeah.
Buy like...
But if you want to buy a new clothes,
Something-
at least you can,
you can wear for a long time.
Either you donate your old clothes, or even the clothes that are no longer wearable, you can also still donate it to animal shelters, because they can reuse it for blankets or towels or
This is
napkins
the first time I've
and
heard
that
about
kind of
this.
stuff.
We learned so much this morning.
Yes.
Just before we go to another report coming, I'd like to get a quick perspective from Professor. Professor, on behalf of the government, you also were a part of our government. What sort of push can the government do to sort of, is it incentivize the people living in the coastal areas and just in general around the world and also around the nation to do a collective to take a collective actions to save our oceans and our seas around the country?
Yeah, it is. I want to put the celebration of World Ocean Day in perspective. What I mean by in perspective, we don't have to talk about all the negative side about ocean, coral damage, pollution, but we have also to take the bright side. As I said, 70% of our coastal and ocean environment
still intact,
still underutilized, and we need the smart head and the skillful hand here to utilize our coastal and ocean resources for the benefit of our people.
And sustainably too.
On sustainable basis, because as we know that Indonesia right now still a middle income country with 10% of poverty. About 30 million of Indonesian people still living under poverty line. That's according to our statistics agency. But if according to the World Bank, with poverty line $3 per person per day, Indonesian poor still 100 million. So that's why President Jokowi in 2014 decided to make Indonesia as the world maritime fulcrum. Okay, that means we have to utilize our coastal and ocean resource once again, on environmentally friendly basis. Yeah? So we have to take that bright side, and of course, in the future, we have to learn from the past bad practices, which is damaging coastal environment, putting the garbage, discharging the waste, and exploiting fisheries resources bigger than maximum sustainable yield, which cause overfishing. So all what we call environmentally damaging practices must be stopped, and we have to move with environmentally friendly what we call coastal and ocean resource utilization.
Right. So there is a way to utilize our oceans, which has such a big potential to elevate our economy without destroying and damaging the ocean itself.
In the last 10 years, we have invented the environmentally friendly fishing gears to catch the fish from coral ecosystem, we call it a setnet.
Setnet.
Setnet means in Indonesia jaring duduk. So
Setnet,
setnet, that passive fishing gear. So basically, the fishing gear will wait what you call fish
For the fish to just
to enter the
into
net.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of the net going around the ocean, catching
that
whatever is
what we
possible.
call it active fishing gear. This is passive fishing gear. And you know what? The productivity of setnet, it's already proven in Japan, in South Sulawesi, in Southeast Sulawesi, much higher than active fishing gear.
Right.
Especially for coral reef ecosystem. So this kind of environmentally friendly fishing technology must be introduced into our fishermen and into our coastal communities, so that in the future the utilization of fisheries resources not diminished.
So we have that in Indonesia
Yes,
currently,
indeed.
or is it just starting to be introduced to our fishermen?
Just to increase socialization and dissemination of this environmentally friendly fishing technology.
I see.
And also, from what you said, Professor, we can also learn from countries who've made such significant stride in making use the most of their ocean without breaking it apart. It's something that we're going to delve deeper in the next segment. But we do have an information coming in, Luisa.
That's right. So June 8 is designated as World Ocean Day with celebrations in many countries across the globe. The day is aimed at raising awareness of the essential role of the ocean in our lives and the overall health of the planet. Let's take a quick look at its history.